You're watching Network Radio. Live from the Media Broadcasting Center.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Welcome to Wake Up to the Truth Radio with your hosts, Mike Serour and Erik Spitfire Wilkinson. Welcome to the Resistance.
Hey everybody, welcome to Wake Up to the Truth TV here at MBC. I'm your host, Mike Serour, with my partner in crime,
Erik Spitfire Wilkinson over here. Yeah, for old time's sake, why don't we just do it? Let's get ready to rumble!
How you doing tonight, my man?
Doing good, man. Doing good. How about yourself? You were recovering from that birthday party.
It was rough. I had a lot of soda. A lot of soda
Popping Kool-Aid.
Yeah, I don't feel any older, which is good. But turning 21 for the 15th time now, you think it would make me feel older, but it really has not.
No, I turned 30 like 13 times now myself.
Right. So you get it.
Yep.
Anyway, man, tonight we were originally going to cover what was going on in Ukraine, but because we had some guests that are going to be on Thursday, which is going to be just a massive, mind-blowing show, we kind of flip-flopped. So we took Thursday's show, which was originally going to be the Gray State again, and moved it to tonight. So we really appreciate everybody joining us tonight. What I really want to do with this episode tonight is, for those that can view the webcam, I'm going to be showing quite a few documents, things like that. And if not, it's only $5 a month to join NBC. You'll be able to check out all the live webcams. I mean, you can just get all the shows. You get the whole shebang for $5 a month, man. NBC's got a ton of great shows. We've got Truth Talks. We've got, oh man, Erik, there's so many here. We got Jim Fetzer. We've got Bev Collins' show with the 9/11 Truth Talks. We got our producer Mark show. We got Chance's show. We got the show in the future where I'm going to kick the crap out of Rush Limbaugh. You're not going to want to miss that. For that reason alone, you're going to want to buy a membership because I'm going to get them. It's coming. Right after him is going to be O'Reilly. Anyway, man, I wanted to get into some more on the Gray State. And instead of talking as much about the case, I want to talk about the turmoil that's going on, man, because I've been following a lot of the stuff on social media lately, man, and it's really getting hard to depict who's an infiltrator, who's a troll, who's a real truther, who's an agent, who's a real friend of David Crowley, who's a real family member of David Crowley. It's getting to the point where it's becoming somewhat of a headache, man, and I've reached out to people within the justice group on Facebook, who have been the most responsive, by the way. Every time I reach out to others, like Sean Wright or Brendan Hunt, who's also, I've reached out to him a couple times now. He's seen the message, has not gotten back to me. And we'll be showing some of his article today too. So basically I'm looking for answers from both sides here to try to come to some kind of a middle ground to figure out what's really going on, because the way I kind of see it is there's not a whole lot of evidence out in the case right now. So right now it's a lot of assumptions. I've come across a lot of unfriendly people from the opposition of the justice page. I've come across a lot of unfriendly people within the justice page as well. Some people's beliefs are extremely out there, in my personal opinion, but they have the rights to believe whatever they choose to believe. But then again, I have the right to choose who to associate with as well. I'm not big on the whole pro-Nazi thing. I refuse to stay away from any kind of Nazi regime or any kind of racism or people that don't know the difference between a religion and a propaganda hate, a murderous, treasonous group such as Zionism. If people can't tell the difference between the two, I prefer to just stay away from those people. However, this is America, and I'm a constitutionalist, so I say if that's what you want to believe in, you can believe in that, and I'm not going to rip you apart for that. So basically where I'm at, Erik, is, as you know, I mean, I'm sure you've gone over the page a few times too.
Yeah.
Does it not seem like, okay, first of all, the page is a fantastic idea. This case really, really needs to be looked at. But how deep can we really, truly look into it when there really is not a whole lot of evidence that has come out?
Right. A lot of speculation is going on right now. I know that a name that keeps coming up in relation to this case is Alex Jones. He keeps popping up everywhere when it comes to it. And he did speak about it on a show a few days ago. Somebody called in and asked him if he was thinking about finishing it. And Alex Jones did look into finishing it, but he said that he was just having so much trouble with the rest of the production crew that he just said, screw it for now.
Okay.
So he was having trouble working out the details.
Yeah, and Alex Jones has been pinned as being one of the guys that is basically involved with knowing this is going to happen, as well as Mark Dice, to name a few. And I just, until I see proof, man, I don't buy that. I really don't. This is kind of coming from the same people, I think, that have always said that Alex Jones is working for the Illuminati, and he's a Zionist, and he's, what else? A gatekeeper. A gatekeeper seems to pop up a lot.
He's Bill Cooper. That's the funniest one. He's Bill Cooper.
Yeah, and I just don't
stop.
I just don't. I don't see it, man. I have not seen any proof of that. Now he, maybe he doesn't cover as much as what people really want him to. Like, he didn't cover a whole lot of the Sandy Hook when it first happened. Okay. He also hasn't covered a whole lot of the Gray State, but I can tell you right now that we are probably one of the very, very few alternative media stations that are staying on this case. And I believe we need to continue to stay on this case. Just like you're following very, very closely right now with the Ukraine situation. I'm handling the Gray State situation, and those seem to be the two things that we're really focusing on and putting our two brains together. But basically what I really want to get to is I want people to call in tonight. Okay. I really, really want people to call in tonight, because if we end up leaving the show in 2 hours and we have nobody that's called in to explain either side, then I'm going to be convinced that there's possibly no truth whatsoever on either side. Okay, so basically what I've done with our show tonight is I've opened it up like a huge boxing ring. Okay, so people can come in, they can say what they have to say. They can, we can limit the calls as they come in. I mean, obviously we have a ton of phone calls. We want to get to everybody. But I want people to say what's on their mind, man. If you've got information out there that can help me try to figure out, like I said, I've reached out to guys like Brendan Hunt, who is obviously a big time against Dan Hennen, who's the administrator of the Justice Page. Okay. Dan, when I talk to him, he will respond to me. He will talk to me. Sean Wright decided that he was, did not want to do the interview. He decided that he wasn't ready, and that they were looking to do a couple mainstream media interviews first, which good luck to you, Sean. You're not going to get the coverage you're looking for unless it is the coverage you're looking for. I'm not sure. I've reached out to this Brendan Hunt. Like I said, he saw 2 of my messages. He had no problem writing his side of the story in an article that we're going to show in a little bit. And through accusations around, I reached out to him to ask him if he had any information whatsoever with his accusations. And of course, I get no response whatsoever from him. So I guess right now what I can say is that the people from the Justice page on Facebook are the ones that have been very cool as far as getting back to me right away and answering questions. And I guess my question to you, Erik, is what, I mean, how would you take that real quick? And it looks like we got a caller coming in already, which is good. But Erik, real quick before we get to the caller, what's your take on this, man? I mean, are you looking at it as, is it going to possibly end up being like any other group on Facebook? Is it going to turn into just a bunch of charades and arguing and things like that? I mean, because not everybody in these groups are bad people. And I do believe it's Facebook, and these groups are infiltrated on a daily basis.
Right. I'm calling shenanigans. That's what I've seen on here. I've just seen a lot of arguing and a lot of disrespect towards the family. And as far as, Alex Jones not reporting on Sandy Hook right away, reporting on this, it's because he's a smart reporter and he gets the facts before he speculates. That's what a smart reporter would do. They wouldn't just jump on anything. But he did say, in fact, the other day, he did say that he doesn't buy this story. He thinks the murder-suicide thing is ridiculous. So he is on the side of David Crowley and the family.
Okay. Well, let's go to the phones. Who do we have on the air with us right now?
Hi, Dan Hennen.
Dan,
Hey,
how you
Dan.
doing, buddy?
Good. How are you?
We're not doing too bad. Another lovely winter day, night in Detroit, Michigan.
Awesome.
So,
Did you
Dan, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Erik.
Dan, did you have any idea the amount of stress you're going to take on starting this page? I'm sure you started it because you're a good guy and wanted to help the family. And after seeing what's gone on, wow. 9/11 truth pages have nothing on what you've dealt with.
Yeah. On the other pages that have started similar to this, there's been some support, but not the backlash that we faced here at all. It was unbelievable, the backlash.
Right. Yeah, Dan has dealt with some personal threats too that you can find within the files page too, which I also think, Dan, I want to tell you, I commend you because you put that stuff out there and reaching out to the opposition of what you guys are doing. I'm not getting any information from those people. However, you guys are taking the time to post everything that's going on day to day. And I want to tell you, it's a lot easier to believe people that are posting the evidence than just taking somebody's word for it. So Dan, I want to tell you, I appreciate you providing the evidence that you're getting, the threats that you're getting. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about, I know that you've been threatened by a couple people for sure. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that and why the threats had come in?
Yeah, for the first point, the focus of our page is transparency, and that's not to gatekeep or steer or to sway people's opinion, but simply to post everything there is, whether it sheds yourself in favorable light or not. We're going to post everything, whether I receive a threat or not. We're going to post it out there. We certainly get lots of compliments that come in from the page, a lot of personal, private messages and instant messages commending the group and saying what a great job we're doing. Along that, there's a lot of anger and hostility. We decide to post everything out there, and I'd rather let everyone get the information. And we're all adults. You can make your own decisions on how you want to perceive that and what angle you want to take that down. But the goal on the page is to let everyone make their own decisions on the evidence posted.
Right, and I also noticed too, Dan, that you don't censor anybody. You don't, you let everybody have their say, regardless if they're. And what's amazing to me is you take quite a beating online too, and yet you're not the type of person that wants to boot anybody out. You believe that everybody has a right to speak, even if it is against you. And like I said, some of the stuff that I've read, I'm thinking to myself, man, this guy, he really takes a verbal lashing, and yet I've seen very, very little negative retaliation on your part at all. You just seemed to handle it with class, and I commend you for that, because if it was me, I would have a tough time. I would have a tough time with that.
Well, I tell the newer members here to the group, it's not my first rodeo. We've done this before. I've handled these cases like this. The best way and most effective way to get a case like this is to snuff it out right at the beginning, whether it's setting up a page in the first few days. As soon as you can, setting up something like this is the best way to snuff something like this out and to expose it. So by having this set up right away, really did help and draw out, people jumped on board right away. There's the other page on Facebook that was created, and incidentally, the exact same day, Thomas Lapp created one called Justice for David Crowley in Gray State, and that wasn't in conjunction with mine. I just created one called Justice for David Crowley and Family, kind of more with the to defend the family kind of aspect to it. But we both set it up the same day, different pages, but didn't have anything to do with each other. But yeah, it really it's interesting to see the people come out of the woodwork on a case like this.
Yeah, and like guys, Dan, you and I had messaged each other. Like I had said at the beginning of the show, Erik, any question I had for Dan, he answered it, and he provided me with links and provided me with everything that I needed to see. And I had asked him some tough questions, things like, Dan, there's people that are saying, that you and Thomas Lapp are trying to get donations and basically embezzle money from the family. And, is that true? And he's had allegations of being accused of having 7 different David Crowley pages, which is not true. Dan runs a number of justice groups. They're not all David Crowley groups. He was accused of that. He's been accused of being a pro-Nazi. Damn, the list is quite lengthy. But the difference is you've taken the time, even if the questions were hard, to answer. You didn't, there's nothing to hide, and we've known you now for, quite a while here. We've had you on our show even back when we were with Blog Talk, and you've always been a great guy, and I know where your heart is, and I just don't see any of these accusations being true against you unless there's some real evidence that the opposition can really throw at me to convince me. I've not seen anything yet.
And the other thing too is to point out is I did not know David Crowley before this case, and I've never heard actually of Gray State before this case came out. So the other site that I run relates to the murder of the family of Philip Marshall. When that case came out, I had never heard of Philip Marshall or the books that he had written. So it's more of the thing that piques my interest is the how something like this goes down, and the strange aftermath is what really is when your ears go up that something just isn't right here, and then you start digging in and finding out that it is entirely true, that your gut instinct typically is correct on something like this, where something fishy is going on, and the people are not being told the truth.
Right. So, well, how did you end up coming in contact with Sean?
The very first day I posted a picture. I think it was the second day. The second day I posted a photo of Dan Crowley with the dog there at the vet, or in the pound, or wherever he was, and then Sean instant messaged me just to see, asking where I got that photo from. And I responded back. I said I pulled it from Dan Crowley's Facebook page and just posted it on there. And he goes, "Okay, that sounds good. Just wanted to make sure it wasn't hacked or anything." Right. And then we were in communication after that, as far as talking about the case. And then I think it was a day later, he asked me to call him, and I gave him a chatter with him on the phone one night for about 35 minutes. And, we didn't agree on everything, but we agreed to disagree on some things. But for the most part, we had a lot in common, and as far as our backgrounds and things to that effect. But you could tell in talking with him when I went down the road of requesting admin rights and wanting to control over the page. I got the heads up earlier on from Thomas Lapp from his page that he gave me the heads up saying, just be on the lookout for others trying to take control of your page, because that's your first tip off that something's not right. And when Sean asked for to be admin and to change the name of the page and to start booting off certain people he didn't like, I said, no, that's fine. I'll keep it going. Thanks to the offer, but I'd rather not have other people be administrators on a site. And so then the tone changed and the anger came into play. And I asked him about coming to the funeral and, taking part in that. I'd be interested in coming to the service. And then the backlash came as far as saying, you're not invited. I'm going to make sure that I got security here to boot you out. You and your friends don't plan on coming. Watch your back. Don't look over your shoulder. All these things came out all because of the administration rights for a Facebook page. And I thought that was just very strange, the behavior for, something as small as that when, I just thought that was odd. And that's kind of when the threats came down the pipeline and things like that. So the anger really, really came through, not on anything to do with the family or the case, but something over something as simple as a Facebook page.
Right.
What we had done too was there were some other people, family and friends that were very close, that came to our site thinking it was a condolences page or a tribute page to the family, and got upset to see that investigative work was being done and things were being researched. And we politely told those folks that you can certainly create a page for that. It's free to do. You can set up a condolences page, a tribute page to the family, and share your memories and share your stories. But this page is not it. And the other thing was that we'd never on my page never even invited anyone from the Gray State or the family or friends to even come on the page. It was just set up more of an investigative page, and then the others all soon followed. But we did point out we never did have changed the mission of the page, and never have changed the status or the title or anything. As far as we're just looking for questions. We don't buy the official story. We think it's BS from the beginning. We're not here to show what we think happened or to estimate or to guesstimate. We just know that the members here in the group just don't buy the facts. It just doesn't add up.
Right. Well, I just shared for those that can see us on the webcam, that conversation, and for those that if there is anybody, I'll pull it up again. And right here it does say coming from Sean, for you not to show up to the services. You will not be allowed to see it. Take that where you want to. Basically saying that you're not respecting the friends and the family, calling you a disrespectful piece of shit. I mean, this is, some pretty heavy stuff. And you can, for those that are curious of what I'm reading, if you're not familiar with what I'm showing right now, you could go on the Justice for David Crowley Facebook page, Justice for David Crowley and Family. And up the top, you can see these files. Dan has posted them on there. So everything that Dan is talking about there, it is in black and white. He's telling you the truth as things that are unfolding. And like I said, I'm not getting anything from the opposition, Dan. So far, like I said, I have no reason not to believe with my own eyes what I'm seeing and hearing, So now, I remember you invited me to the group, and of course, you being who you are and how I know you, any group that you invite me to, chances are I'm gonna take the invite, because you do good work. You very thorough researcher. What else? I mean, there's a lot of other family and friends. Now, what's the deal with this Brendan Hunt guy? Now, this guy won't get back to me to save his soul, but he's been doing a pretty good job as far as really calling you out and members of the group, saying that, some of you guys are criminals, that you guys lure women behind the scenes through Facebook messages. I mean, all these accusations out there. But the guy obviously is not going to come on. However, he's got the link. So if he's listening tonight, I'd love to have him call up, man. I mean, what's the deal with this guy?
Sounds like you're getting typical ad hominem attacks, attack you rather than attack the story, which is lends a lot more credence to what you're trying to do too. It actually gives you a lot more credibility, my friend.
Yeah, when Brendan Hunt comes into play on certain conspiracies or events, you're heading down the right direction. As a controlled opposition, he will come into play and drive anyone out who goes against that official narrative. Very similar to what Wolfgang Helbig encountered on the Sandy Hook case. Wolfgang came in, and I've spoken with him a few times too, and he came into the Sandy Hook event from a different angle, coming from a school security officer or school protocol, I guess, and really went after it that way. And Brendan Hunt and others came out and just skinned them alive. That's kind of what I'm encountering here, which, like you said, it's a compliment. as a controlled opposition, a guy who's probably paid to be doing what he's doing, I don't mind that kind of flack coming down. So he did a hit piece on me on one of his videos, and I promptly posted it on our page too, and told their members, take a look. I got questioned heavily as to why would you post something negative about yourself on your very own page. And I said, well, that's just the way it is. We want transparency. Mm-hmm. He posted a second video as well, and then Dan Fight, another person under Hong Kong, posted a hit piece as well. Another I would call it a poorly written, poorly researched, kind of a bash. But those are the three. When I confirmed that with Sean Wright that he indeed communicate with Brendan Hunt around the same time the attitude changed with the Gray State guys, it all kind of fell into place. Then I knew we were on to something. Then that we had a story that had legs. Sean and another member of the Gray State and admin. I can't think of his name right now, but very interested in getting to the root of this, and getting to the cause of what happened here. But after they spoke to Brendan Hunt on the phone is when the request came on the Thomas Lapp website to gain administrative rights. Sean was given them, quickly deleted several threads and changed the tone of that page. And then when he wrapped all that up and cleaned up his hands, he came over to my site and wanted to do the exact same thing. And I said, I asked him, was Brendan Hunt involved in any of this? He says, yes, I spoke to him directly. So then I figured we had something here. I don't know why a member of Gray State dealing with the grieving of a close friend would venture out and have a conversation with Brendan Hunt this close after the death of a close friend. But that's when we started to put two and two together here, that things weren't adding up.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so, I mean, this guy, Brendan has got a big, deep hatred for anybody that questions the Sandy Hook case, for sure. He makes that very clear. And I guess what it seems like he's trying to do, Dan, is it seems like the accusations are that that you personally are accusing David Crowley's family as having the most to gain from murdering him. And you had talked to me about that in a private message, and I had been told that you're accusing Dan Crowley, and the way you explained it made a lot of sense. So for those that had heard the rumor that Dan is accusing David's brother of being the murderer, the way Dan explained it to me, and I'll let Dan explain it again to you too, is that, this is a murder investigation basically. So when in any murder investigation, 9 times out of 10, they will come to the family for questioning, especially if any kind of a comment's made that just kind of didn't feel right. So what happened with that, Dan?
Yeah, here's how that played out. There were some comments on the page as far as people theorizing what was going down. And I had made a mention, a reference to another site on a YouTube channel that had gone down the road of putting together a bunch of evidence relating to Dan Crowley, the brother. Saying that he would be the guy most likely to do this because he had the biggest motive if there was some jealousy in the family or something, and he didn't like the brother getting all the attention. His brother married to a beautiful wife, had a gorgeous daughter. His current job here with Dan kind of stagnating. Is his career not really going anywhere? Did he have the motive to do this? I don't know. I read some of his comments, laughed it off at first, thought maybe there was. And so I mentioned that when people were talking about the comments made on my page. I said, you should see what else is being said about this case on the web, on other pages. Our website here is pretty tame compared to some of the things. In fact, one of the groups are blaming, the brother for doing it. So I had said, I'm not believing it or buying it, but the questions raised there as far as whoever it was who came into the house and committed this heinous crime, there was no mention of the dog barking or the dog going off. So one can safely assume that whoever did this probably knew the family or knew the dog. The dog didn't bark. So I said, I'm surprised that Dan Crowley hasn't been brought in for questioning, mainly because the police didn't offer on any press release that I've seen who they did bring in for questioning. As far as we know, it's nobody. But with a case like this, even if it is a simple suicide, simple suicide murder, you still have to bring in close family and friends for simple questioning to see if they can lead down that road of what really did happen. If I was an investigator, I'd certainly bring in his brother, Dan Crowley. He would have some information. He worked closely with the group, knew the family very well. I mentioned later, I'd certainly bring in all the members of the Gray State team for questioning. Having a staff and a crew that spent 4 years of their life putting in blood, sweat, and tears into this project, and having your lead, director or creator come back from Hollywood saying, I got a couple offers, but I turned them down. I'm not interested in giving up the rights to the movie. This may not go down at all. Well, you're going to be dealing with some pretty upset, resentful people who poured 4 years of their life into this project, all to have one man, yank it all away. So with him out of the picture, you certainly would go back. If these guys, members of the group wanted to go back and pitch it to a different producer and sell it for something less, make some good coin on it. It's obviously you're not going to make anything now with him being gone after turning down some, big budget deals. I made the comment that the guys from Gray State have the most to gain with David Crowley being dead. That is a fact that I wholeheartedly agree with. Now, I'm not making accusations. I'm not blaming anyone. But I certainly, if I was the Apple Valley Police Department, would certainly bring in the guys for questioning to simply question them about the case. But that quickly led to me accusing the Gray State team of committing the murders, which is not the intent. This was a calculated, clean hit that certainly was not carried out by any of these guys that I mentioned here. But certainly to be bringing for questioning, I think, is a fair statement to say.
Absolutely, without a doubt. And now I'm going to share this on the screen. Now we have people talking about indications of domestic abuse. I saw, which is just, they're just going after him and trying to smear him any way they can now. I mean, there's no history of any type of domestic abuse whatsoever. Not one single call to the police station, not one single police report, no indicators whatsoever. And the smear campaign against him is just taking it. They're taking it to a whole nother level. They're printing T-shirts with David's wife and child on it to be the poster child of this movement against domestic violence. And when stuff like this pops up, it smells even worse now. It lends credence to what we're talking about, that this was a complete cover up. This wasn't a murder suicide when you have stuff like that. And who's leading the charge? Mainstream media, of course.
Yep, that's correct. That's where you can. I've seen a lot of that lately with the PTSD abuse. So we certainly know that was not the case. I didn't know the family. I'm not speaking from experience here, but from everything I read and have seen, these guys were the perfect couple. A family, perfect perfect deal all around. I mean, best friends we're talking. So now you get the situation playing the abuse angle, and it gets everyone really stirred up because that we know that's not the case.
Right.
And it really stinks to high heavens when it's the mainstream that alludes to these things. And the first reports out of the gate from the UK Daily Mail was the headline, "Gun Enthusiast Kills Family." And of course, of all the pictures of the loving family of David and Kamel, the picture they select to choose is him in a gas mask holding a rifle, a high-powered rifle. And so you find out later that the images were taken from his garage sale and some of the props that he had from his movies, but they were trying to put a spin right out of the gate on this case, which makes the whole thing smell fishy.
Right. So where do you go from here now, Dan? What's next?
Well, all we know, I mean, there has not been official reports. We've seen the medical examiner's report came out in a press release, and I think one report from the Apple Valley Police Department, but still there's been nothing coming out. There's been no forensics, ballistics, no, very eerily odd silence on anything coming out of the case. The only thing we're hearing is the backlash and the anger from people who want to walk lockstep here with the official narrative, which is very strange. I would say that overall, to summarize, I would say the explanations surrounding these events are still inadequate. Nothing is even being done. This case isn't being touched. No one's looking at it. There's nothing more we can do except investigate. But it's just it's very strange. It's very, very strange, the whole situation. The other thing is, as far as setting up a justice page, the other times that I have done this, you hear immediately from family and friends saying, "Thank you for doing this. You don't have anything to be invested here. Why are you doing this out of the goodness of your heart?" And what we've been met with here has been backlash from the very family and friends who I went out of my way to create a page for to try to find justice. That to me is right up with about the best thing you could do for someone that you don't even know, out of respect. So I don't know. It's the behavior of the individuals that is the most alarming thing, I would say, with this whole case. It's very, very odd.
Absolutely. Have you had any contact with the co-creator, Ben Swan?
With Ben Swan?
Yeah.
No, I have not.
I know he's done an interview and he's not buying into it either, and that's a big indicator once again that you're on the right track if the co-creator is getting his back. Oh, you made it back, Mike.
I did. The NSA failed that time. So we still have Dan on then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, but like I had mentioned earlier, Dan, I don't know, man. This Brendan guy, he's got it out for you, buddy. The thing about his article that I noticed is maybe not on YouTube, but definitely what I was showing the listeners as far as his article goes is he never gets any comments on his articles either. So I really don't know.
He's been around long enough now that people have picked up on him. If you go to anything on any comments on GLP, right after Brendan Hunt makes a comment, each of the threads on Godlike Productions, they all seem to just die out, and no one gives him the time of day. So he's been exposed, which is fine. No, fine for me. But he does gravitate toward to the bigger cases, and when he glommed on to us, that was a clear indicator here that we're onto something much deeper than what people think.
Right. So obviously it seems like, like any group, when they start getting too close to something, they start, they start coming out of the woodwork, as you mentioned. There's been a couple times that for Erik and I personally, when we started talking about chemtrails, the minute we mentioned that word, Oh my goodness, man. We were accused of being paid shills, agents. I was even accused of being put on Alex Jones' payroll, so it was like, if those checks are coming, Alex, my mailbox has been empty, brother, and I need the cash. No, but it's just amazing. And it kind of goes back to no good deed goes unpunished, and, but everybody that I've talked to in the group, Dan, for the most part, has been really, really good. If you noticed, I've been making posts about, hey, I'm urging people to call. I'm urging people to come onto the show. And the ones that are responding are from your group, but it seems like the ones that really want to cause a lot of negativity, they don't seem to call, and they don't seem to message me, and they don't seem to respond.
Right.
Yep, I've encouraged about 5 other members of the group that were negative, I guess, on the group, and said, certainly call in. Now's your time. Make a call in. They're open lines. I've been on the show before. They'll welcome you with open arms. Go ahead and plead your case and show, say what you've got to say. But no one has called in yet, which is very, I would say, very telling. But it would be nice to get some other viewpoints, I think, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I don't know, man. Erik and I have been looking forward to having people call in many times, and it just doesn't seem to happen for us, does it, Erik?
It doesn't. And, let me do a correction there too for you, Dan. Actually, Ben Swan was somebody who did an interview with Danny.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He did an interview with Danny Austin. Yep.
And yes, and as Danny stuck to the belief that it was a murder-suicide still. Yeah, quite sad.
Yeah, and those other guys at Gray State haven't said anything. I mean, it's as far as some of the main players, they've been relatively quiet. They haven't been coming on the page, haven't been coming on the site. It's the strange thing that struck me was Sean Wright, who really took heed and took it upon himself to really take charge and to make sure this conspiracy talk went nowhere and was indeed snuffed out.
Right.
And when we put him together with Brendan Hunt and the official narrative that wanted to go down, and Sean Wright basically defending it as if his life was online, coupled with his impending legal IRS charges, is when we started to put 2 and 2 together that he may have been compromised. He may have a deal working on his IRS, that he may have some leniency, for his sentencing. If this case goes down the right path, who knows? Now, if it doesn't, he mentioned to me on the phone he could be sitting behind bars in prison for 70 years. Now, that to me seems odd. I've never heard of such a thing for tax. But if someone was to get to him, and someone did, in fact, may have squeezed him on this case, they are going to elaborate and inflate things to really get you scared. And the behavior by Sean Wright is a man that's pretty obviously, by reading his works, is a man who's scared and a man who's been cornered. I don't know by who or by what, but he's scrambling right now, and I'm not sure what's behind it. But it's not the behavior of a close friend, someone who died, to be coming out with his anger.
Right. And that's kind of what, kind of got me. I thought, man, 70 years is an awful big sentence for an IRS mishap,
Yeah, I'm an accountant. I'm an accountant by trade, and I work with the IRS, and I do taxes and I do business. There's no way that's true. I'm not sure where he heard that from, but that was my red light there, that he's been squeezed by someone and he's been compromised. And now you got a guy that's been compromised in the case, who's close to the case, only is going to lead you down to the next rabbit hole of why. Why would someone be compromised? Who else is involved? If he's been, set up as a paid informant that I mentioned earlier, more than likely after the case. But if this was set up before this whole thing went down, who's really behind this? It begs the much larger question: where does this go? Who is, who wants to keep this story quiet? how deep does it go? I don't know. I'm just asking questions.
Right. Well, I tell you, you're doing an excellent job with the page, Dan, and I'm sure that you've dealt with your fair share of cyber bullies, and we know how that feels. But I tell you what, I commend you for not blocking people, not booting people, not censoring people, even the negative stuff that's being posted about you. You're even sharing it with the group. And when you do, you're not posting it as, oh, feel sorry for me. Look at this. You're just basically saying, this is an article that was written about me. That's it. And you let people come to their own conclusions, which is absolutely awesome. It's like, don't take my word for it, research for yourself. And, I really commend you for that. I really do, Dan.
Yeah, thank you. Usually what I find on the other pages as well is the trolls and shills will typically expose themselves. If you just leave them talk long enough, people will come to their own conclusion as to what's really going on. They're there certainly to distract and lead you down the wrong track, lead you down the wrong path. And those are, when those start people coming in to infiltrate, then they are certainly trying to lead people off to a distraction, which we've dealt with. There's been a handful of people banned off the page who have been distracted. But other than that, like I said, when I started out, I got more people. I had a whole handful of people who left saying, until you start banning people on the page, I'm not going to come back. You can't keep it wide open. And in a situation like this, I find it best that for that first week, you let it roll, you let it slide, and wait for that second week, no matter what your urges are to do. Start cleaning house that second week, but just let the first week roll, because they're all going to start coming up with calling you other things as far as a dictator and a ruler, and start banning people. So you got to let it flow. Now the second week came into play, handful of people were banned, and sure enough, the threats came out. Who are you, a dictator? Why are you controlling the page all by yourself? So it comes with the territory.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Erik and I have a couple pages. We know exactly how that goes. But anyway, Dan, we're getting close to the top of the hour. I know that there's people in the chat that are waiting patiently to call in here. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we let you go?
Nope. I'd just like to say thanks for all the support for those who do private message me and email me relating thanks for the case and thanks for stepping up to do this when you've got nothing vested. That does mean a lot. And thanks to the hardcore people out there doing the investigating and looking into things and getting documents and researching things. It really helps. The local law enforcement is on a case like this is not going to do anything. They're not going to investigate, and it's going to take citizen journalists and thanks to take the ball. People out there doing the investigating and looking into getting
right. All right, Dan. Well, we appreciate you calling in, man, and I will definitely catch up with you tonight. Thanks for calling.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Hi, to the caller that's calling in right now. We're catching some live feed. It's kind of echoing there, so if you're listening to the show, if you can kind of turn the volume down.
Yeah, I walked into the other room. I don't think it'll be a problem right now.
All right, perfect. Who's calling?
Joe Serour, SIGUR, Joe Serour. And I've been in Dan's group, I guess, for about a week or so, and I got interested in the case. I guess when I heard about the murders, I heard about Gray State, but hadn't paid that much attention to it, just heard people talking about it. And then the murders happened, and I sort of follow weird events, and so I got interested in that event. I have a website, and I write articles on what I consider to be misinformation a lot, as well as just talking about my basic theories of what's going on. And I wrote a couple of articles, and they were sort of controversial on the webpage at Dan's group.
Okay. Yep, Joe. I know who I'm talking to now. You're also another one that's been on the page that not exactly.
And since you were You were talking about all these negative people not calling in, so I felt it was like people probably consider me negative on this. All I'm really doing is offering a third theory to consider. I'm not saying it's true, but with Sandy Hook, with what happened in France, with events where that police guy got shot and his face didn't even move. I mean, things are happening right now that are being staged, and with as little evidence on the table in this specific situation, I think it has to be considered. I think it's unusual that 3 people died. I think it makes sense that 3 people died if they didn't really die, because then there's still a family and they have a new ID. But that's real negative, because it does insinuate that maybe David could have been COINTELPRO. And that's a very unpopular thing to say. So it's made me very controversial. And they've brought out a whole bunch of things about my views about World War II, as if that like discredits me and stuff. And I'm trying to stay away from that, because it's hard to talk about issues in sound bites that people have very strong feelings on and felt that way all their lives about.
Right. Well, we had a guest that was on, Eileen, who's a really good friend of ours, that actually brought up the same scenario last week to us. You know, what if it was a staged event, considering that some of the witnesses had said that the bodies looked like mannequins, and after 3 weeks, they wouldn't really look like mannequins, especially trapped with a dog.
I mean, if it's a staged event, you have a lot of actors involved. I mean, you're making the police actors involved, and that may have very well happened in France, may very well have happened in Sandy Hook, may very well have happened in Aurora, may very well have happened in Boston. So you have to consider that once you think that that's one possibility, when you look at the event, you have to pretty much distrust everything everybody says until you get evidence to back it up.
Right.
If you're going to consider that possibility.
Right. And
but that makes me really evil, and I've been attacked really hard. Yeah, there's a lot of theories, and that's the one that's not really being talked about in the mainstream. The alternative media, and they don't even talk about conspiracy theories hardly, except they call us kooks in the mainstream media.
Right, right.
But nobody's mentioning this, except I do see people making comments in chat, but no alternative news sites is mentioning this as a possibility. Now, the people that were in Gray State, Alex Jones, Luke Rudkowski, Mark Dice, they all have reputations of being somewhat co-opted. And this is what first got me to immediately grab onto the possibility that the whole movie production, that people don't want to believe this, but the whole movie production might have been a disinfo movie. To give out some good stuff, but also give out some stuff that the New World Order wants out there. So that's sort of like the hypothesis I'm going on. I'm not claiming any of this is fact. I can't prove out Alex Jones is COINTELPRO, but I believe he is.
Why do you believe Alex Jones is COINTELPRO? Curious.
You don't have that feeling?
No, I mean,
basically, I think there's a Zionist involvement in 911. That's one of the real obvious things, and it's pretty well known amongst most people that pay attention that he pretty much whitewashes any Zionist problems concerning a lot of these issues. And a lot of people believe the Zionists are. Huh?
I've heard that about him, and I've actually gone on and pulled up clips of him denouncing Zionists on several different occasions. So people bring that up. It's just not true.
Repetition. It's all about repetition. If you say it once, how many people are going to hear it? If you say it 1,000,000 times, people are going to start believing it. He got those Zionist things out a couple of times to give him some credibility. That's my view. I'm not saying it's fact. Everybody has their own view. You obviously like Alex. I used to love Alex Jones about 3 years ago, but I just sort of moved away from him. You know, started hearing people talking in a certain way, and I started looking into it myself, and I came to that conclusion.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the amount of people that Alex has woke up alone just by doing his show makes me like him. I mean, that alone.
I agree. He probably partly woke me up. To get you started, he's fine. I think he's fine to get you started. So a lot of the people that are just moving away from MSNBC and CNN and Huffington Post, and they're stepping into the conspiracy side where 911 might have been done by people of our own government and some other people. I think he's great for that. It's just when you start getting some knowledge and there's certain things being left out in his narrative, then you, for yourself, you have to go beyond that, or at least that's what I decided for myself. I had to go beyond the Alex Jones narrative to get more closer to the truth.
Okay, well, you brought up not mentioning the Zionist connection a lot, which, as I said, and you've already said too, he has mentioned it, just not a lot. What else gives you the idea that you might not be telling the full truth?
To be honest, I think a good sign of what a New World Order operation is, you can if there's a lot of commercials on it, and that's a good sign that it's got the consent of those that rule us, because real dissent, they keep you from they scare people away from advertising with you. So you're usually a pretty bare bones operation when you're really telling the hardcore truth that really gets close to the core power. They don't mind you getting, in the area if nobody knows exactly what you're talking about. But when you start telling them exactly where the problem's coming from, that's when they start getting on your case. That's when you start getting banned from Facebook. That's when the advertisers, if they were with you, they dry up, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Now, Mike and I, we're both longevity distributors, which is one of the products that he advertises on there. And let me tell you that the products are not snake oil. They are amazing. The results I've seen from them are like nothing else. Is it possible he puts these products out there just because they're incredible products and help people?
I've never talked on the radio before, right? And so I'm looking at it from an outsider, and just as a general view, I think the way he throws the advertisements out on his front page, it looks kind of tacky to me. That's just, maybe other people don't feel that way, but it reminds me of what they do on the mainstream media. And here's another thing. He's the only one that gets invited on The View, on Piers Morgan. He gets talked about on Fox News. That's another sign. If they're willing to say you're there, you're co-opted. They don't want people that are really, they want to be able to control dissent is what I'm saying. If they can't control what you're going to say, they're not going to let you on the MSN. They're not going to let you on Fox News. Unless it's just to yell at you and call you crazy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I've been praying to get on with Rush Limbaugh for a long, long time. And my dream has not come true. So,
well, I mean, it sounds like basically I have headed into the Zionist direction as far as a lot of the subversion going on while we're in the Middle East. I think it was a false flag, and it was really to benefit Israel. Really wasn't to. We're not in there fighting terrorism in the Middle East, as far as I'm concerned.
No.
It is more about some goal they're trying to do in the Middle East. Maybe take it over for Israel, expand Israel to this larger border area, the greater Israel that some of them dream about, and that kind of thing. So, I'm more in that direction, say, like, than most of the people in Dan's group. And this made them, when I came up with my theories, it made them all start bringing up that sort of side. And basically saying, because you think this way, basically anything you have to say is pretty much irrelevant.
Right.
So basically I got out of the group and I just got back in the group, and I sort of put as a little release note that I'm not going to get into anything other than what's going on with Grace Day, just to try and keep it. And I know Dan's happy about that too. And Dan has been a great admin, and he has been. It looks like to me that they're targeting the page, coming in, and they're really just trying to disrupt everything because they don't like what we're doing. And Dan's been really tolerant of it. I don't know that it's a great idea to keep letting people that have an agenda to disrupt to keep staying in there. But he's the admin, and that's his choice.
Right. It sounds to me like he's, doing the whole, I'm going to give them enough rope to hang themselves with scenario.
He's really giving them a very fair shot, and they don't appreciate it one little bit, I'll tell you that. I mean, if you've been watching some of those discussions in there, I had 3 of them get on me when I was alone in that group, and they just kept focusing on telling me why Dan is a paid-for op. For about 30 minutes, I said, I don't want to hear it. Leave me alone. They wouldn't leave me alone. They kept telling me to go research this and go research that, and there wasn't nothing being talked about Gray State.
Right.
And that's like my example of what I mean.
Right, exactly. And that's what the job of infiltrators is to do, is to
exactly right. Well, you know what I said? I said kick this girl, right? So another girl sees that I said kick this girl, and she said he's gonna kick her.
Yeah,
like literally kick her. And that's abuse, man. And they made a big deal about that for about 15 minutes on the chat.
Yeah.
Cyber assault.
It was funny too, Joe, before we let you go, one of the projects I was going to try to do here, Erik and I decided, is we were going to start making up memes that looked very realistic and just put whatever crazy bogus fact we could just to see how many people would like or share it. But unfortunately, we're in such fragile, delicate times with our society that's very, very dumbed down, in our opinion, that we're afraid that we would actually sway people for real, and we don't want to do that.
To your point of view, right?
Right. So.
Well, I'm not really throwing that opinion out to ruin everybody's day. I know it hurts the Crowley's feelings, and I know it hurts the people tied to Gray State, especially if they're all innocent, and they very well might be. But as a person who doesn't know any of them and who is interested in keeping this information out of the movement, and the fact that we're not getting any real facts, I just think it has to be considered. And Absolutely. You know what? I'm losing my voice, so I really need to get off in a second.
All right, Joe. Well, listen, we really appreciate you calling in. And we're going to be following this case, so we'd love to have you back on again. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you then. Take care.
All right, Joe. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, we're at the top of the hour right now. We're going to take a small break, and when we come back, hopefully we have some more callers that'll be coming in. We'd like to hear from you. The phone number is posted in the chat, but it's 1-866-806-6264, and the code that you'll punch in is 148-489-4098, and we'll be right back.
We can now say with moral certainty and considerable scientific authority that the death of JFK was committed by a meticulously executed conspiracy which was obscured by an extensive cover-up. Murder in Dealey Plaza, edited by James Fetzer, goes to the heart of the JFK assassination. You'll read new and up-to-date information regarding the Secret Service, the Lincoln limousine, the medical evidence, the cover-up, altering the film, framing the patsy, and the silent historians. Also, 16 smoking guns, each one crushing the government's lone assassin scenario. A world-class chronology of November 22nd, 1963. Chapters by David W. Mantic, Gary Aguilar, Vincent Palomera, Douglas Weldon, Jack White, Ira David Wood III, James H. Fetzer, Doug Horn, and a classic essay by Bertrand Russell. The complete story in the pages of one single book, edited by James H. Fetzer. Read it now, read it again. You'll use it as a reference. Murder in Dealey Plaza. Available at Amazon.com and major bookstores around the world. It's murder.
Less than 3% of you people read books, because less than 15% of you read newspapers. Right now, there is an entire generation that never knew anything that didn't come out of this tube. This tube can make or break presidents, popes, prime ministers. Television is not the truth. Television is a circus, a carnival, a traveling troupe of acrobats, storytellers, dancers, singers, jugglers, sideshow freaks, lion tamers, and football players. We deal in illusions, man. None of it is true. But you people sit there day after day, night after night, all ages, colors, creeds.
Broadcasting live on network radio.
So turn off your television sets, turn them off now, turn them off and leave them off.
Even Bush admits that Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with 9/11. Our own FBI acknowledged it has no hard evidence that ties Osama bin Laden to 9/11. But if Saddam had nothing to do with 9/11, and if Osama had nothing to do with 9/11, then who did it? Who did it? The 9/11 conspiracy provides the answer. Discover the big picture. Learn what we know now. Find out what it means. 11 experts contribute to exposing the truth as the anatomy of an atrocity. Edited by James H. Fetzer. Buy it now if you have the courage to face the truth. Just don't think you're going to like it. The 9/11 conspiracy provides the answer. We can now say, with moral certainty and considerable scientific authority, that the death of JFK.
All right, welcome back to Wake Up to the Truth TV /podcast /radio /world events /whatever.
Cybergasm.
Yeah, cybergasm, right? We're back with the second hour now, as we are talking about turmoil within the gray state, is what we called this show, because there's a lot of turmoil that's going on between some social media, as well as some friends and family of the Crowleys, and we have another caller waiting on the line that we're going to get on the line right now. And if people want to call in, please call in. We'd love to hear from you. So let's welcome the caller to the show.
Hey guys, this
Hey,
is Greg Fernandez Jr.
Greg, how you doing, sir? I've been speaking with you on and off, not when we have the chance. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. I've been sick for like a couple weeks, but I figured I just had to just call in and hopefully ask you guys some questions on this topic.
Sure, absolutely.
So have you guys seen the film? Have you seen the rough cut?
The Rise?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Both of us have.
Okay. So did you guys think that there was anything, groundbreaking in there, or anything that, might have gotten this guy in some deep trouble? Or do you think maybe that's more related to the fictional film, or neither?
See, my personal belief is, first of all, anytime anybody comes out talking about America's financial system and drives the roots home, really, really shakes the government's perspective on things. The fact that this documentary was coming out and then he was coming out with a film, I really think that once the film was going to be released, that the documentary was going to get a huge response. And I there's a lot of things in the documentary, Greg, that I had already known about, but it's always good to see. I guess it wasn't just one person on this documentary. You had many, many, many different people, which kind of showed me a community of people that were speaking out against it. Do I think it had anything to do with this murder? I can't help but think it did. It seems like anytime, there's been a lot of mysterious deaths when people get too close to home. You can look within the 9/11 community and just how many people that got just too close to exposing some things ended up mysteriously dying. So I don't know if that answered the question directly, Greg, or not, but I definitely believe that this guy released a very good in-depth documentary, and releasing it in today's age where people are waking up by the hundreds daily, and maybe not coming out publicly and saying they are, but there's definitely a lot of people that are going, there's something wrong here. And once the government starts to lose control of its people, we start to see things like what the Gray State movie was going to depict. Erik, I don't know if you want to take...
Well, yeah,
Erik.
I agree. If you're pretty well versed on the New World Order and what's going on here, it wasn't a lot of new stuff, but I do know that what's heading our way and what's coming from the generals and the armed forces who are taking early retirement, leaving the country. That's a pretty big topic to be covering, and I know he was talking about that too. And when you have 3- and 4-star generals taking early leave and then retirement, leaving the country, that's indicating something big to me. That was the biggest flag I saw.
Have you guys seen any proof that he's guilty?
No,
I have not either.
Other than what they came out and said initially. I mean, and the number of people that are doing their best to persuade others that there's nothing to see here, folks, just move along. That's a major red flag to me. I mean, I don't believe for one second that this man of great character and phenomenal drive just snapped and killed himself and his family because allegedly he had no money and his project was going nowhere. I don't believe people like David Crowley killed themselves over being broke. I think people like David Crowley are incredibly resourceful and they thrive on challenges. They don't give up. And, some of these friends who are openly supporting the mainstream media's assessment of Crowley, most of them were unfriended by Crowley in the fall when he discovered they were really conspiracy shills. Yeah, a lot of people didn't know this either. And he saw them for what they were and wanted nothing to do with them anymore. So that needs to factor into everything too. And I just don't believe an artist kills himself just before a major product is about to be released. I mean, he's just about to get this project released that he put his blood, sweat, and tears into, and then he kills himself. It makes absolutely no sense to me.
Not to mention kill his family as well.
Exactly.
Well, okay. Well, then what type of proof would you need to be convinced that he's guilty?
What type of proof that he did, in fact, kill his family and then himself?
Yes.
Well, personally, it would take. I know what it would. It's going to take a lot more than a medical examiner report. For sure. I mean, we've definitely seen with Sandy Hook and many other events, regardless if people believe Sandy Hook the official story or not. One thing that I think everybody can agree on in that situation is that medical examiner looked like they hired him from a rent-a-cop store.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen anybody so unprofessional in my life, and I don't know, man. A lot wrong with there. We could drag that on for the next 48 hours, Greg, but we'll stick to the topic. It would definitely take more than just a police report. It would take more than just a medical examiner's report. But this case is going to be very, very hard because I don't think it's going to be given the thorough investigation that it deserves. The back door being ajar really, really bugs me a lot, especially when the weather is not exactly spring. I don't know many people that leave their doors ajar. We don't in Michigan, and we freeze our asses off here if we even have, if we don't have our bottom of our doors have a blanket in front of them to stop a draft, we'll freeze. So there's some disturbing things that just, and then there's also a stretch too. I personally, Greg, don't believe that the murderers shoveled the driveway to cover their tracks. I really do believe that neighbors did do that. I just don't see, a bunch of guys. First of all, no dog is barking, and now this dog sees this horrendous murder, and he's just going to allow them to, out of that big bay window, just watch him shovel the driveway up, and nobody's going to notice. And so we have to be careful that not every car accident's a conspiracy. But I guess it would take, maybe for me, it would take some real independent investigations. And not so much federal, I guess that's what it would take, because I'm in a situation in my life that I've seen so much cover up, man, in the last 8 years that I don't think that this case is going to get the proper investigation from anybody within the government or within law enforcement. I just don't.
Well, I mean, I've had a certain person, a couple people, privately tell me that, people that claim to be close to David Crowley and in touch with his family, and they're all, some of them are saying that they've been shown proof, and that's why they think that this guy killed his wife and killed his daughter and then killed himself, but they won't share that proof with us.
Right, and I've seen your conversation, Greg. I've seen your conversation. We brought it up on last week's show, as you heard, when Sean, that's a spooky sentence to me, and it hasn't left my mind, that they did it their own way, basically, that they did it on their own terms. What does that mean?
Which is well, that's different than what cops are telling us, too.
Right.
And there's no reason to disclose any evidence or reason that they believe this happened the way they say it did. If it was a murder-suicide, because there's no other suspects out there. There's no reason not to disclose it at all. Another thing that he did show in The Rise, or in the movie, was that he showed us slaughtering little kids in Iraq too. And there's another one that when you asked if there was anything real big or groundbreaking, that would be a pretty big one, because they stayed away from any of that. And the greatest movie out right now, apparently the greatest hoax out, with our favorite riflemen perched atop of roofs, they stayed away from showing us killing any children at all over in Iraq. In fact, the only child that was killed in that movie they showed was being killed by an extremist, if I remember correctly. It was just, so that would be a big reason why they would want to silence the movie, because they don't want that graphic going out there to your mainstream people, that little kids are getting slaughtered over there.
Sure, but that's probably in other films too. I think most of that Gray State rough cut, it was just a lot of footage from other videos and from other, live streams and stuff. But one of the things that bothered me about, what Sean Wright said when he said that they died on their own terms, like how does he know that? How does he know that? Was he told that, or is he just lying, or is he guessing? To me, that was a huge red flag too, definitely.
Yeah, well, there's only two answers to that question as far as how did he know that. Number one, he's just assuming and speaking on behalf of David and his family, or number two, David must have let him know that things were going to go down this way. I mean, I don't know how else he could possibly know that. So I just, I'm not, I don't know. There's something, I like I said, I've reached out to Sean. Sean, basically said that they're staying in the dark right now, and that they're avoiding social media right now. But there's an awful lot.
He had no problem. Yeah, he had no problem contacting me, and he had no problem calling me too.
Right.
And he's contacted many other people. So, you know, and his biggest thing is just for us to just basically stop asking questions,
right?
And just, you know, and that to me is also weird. Like that is, I don't understand that.
Well, it's like the, you know, the old saying, and my grandfather used to tell me this, is that when somebody says to you, "Hey, trust me," those are the first people that you got to watch out for, you know, and that's what it kind of sounds like from what I've read in your conversation with them. Is it was, look, man, don't you think I haven't looked at all these, you know, I've been in the trenches. Don't you think I've researched all this stuff? And it is what it is. He, you know, basically telling us to just to believe the official story and just put the, you know, a terrible pun, the nail in the coffin and move on. And we are not that type of society anymore. More and more of us, you know, we're seeing, that it's not as easy to pull the wool over our eyes anymore. I mean, look at how many times we've followed those that said, "Trust me" or "Trust us." And we've been misled an awful lot, especially since 1913. And, you know, right now we're on the brink of World War III, but we're just supposed to trust our representatives and those in charge that everything's going to be okay, you know? So for some reason, though, the fact that he seems to be, there's two characteristics he's showing. And if I was a detective, I'd wonder, number one, why he's so extremely nervous. And number two, why is he so extremely angry? Those are usually two signs that something isn't right when you're dealing with a case of this. That's just something I've learned in psychology, and that was psychology 101, man. That wasn't even anything advanced, you know, but that's what he does. It seems like when he first contacts people, it seems to be very nice, and then all of a sudden he has this big mood disorder that just switches from being very angry and then very nervous, and then it's a narcissistic view, which is turn the blame on you guys for asking questions. So I don't know, Greg, there's something that just doesn't click right with me when it comes to Sean. I hope that he'll listen in. I hope he'll call in one of these days, but I doubt it. I really don't think he will. The invitation's been out there twice now for him.
Okay, well, if it comes out that Erik Crowley is guilty, you know, if the cops, when they do put out a statement, which for whatever reason they haven't yet, and they really should, but if it does come out that he's guilty, will you support this film? Or any of his work?
I would absolutely support this film. This film is I'm telling you, when I saw the trailer for this film, you know, months ago, I started getting very excited because it was like, I mean, not excited in a sense of, oh my gosh, it's a new Star Wars movie, I got to catch it. But I looked at it in the sense of, my God, just in the trailer, this is exactly where our country is heading. You know, and this is going to be on the big screen. I hope. My first thought was they're going to do everything in their power not to let this movie hit the big screen. But absolutely, I definitely want to see this film, and I'm quite sure it's going to be everything that I thought it would be.
Your co-host feels the same way, Erik?
Absolutely. Remember after the Oklahoma City bombing, we had Terrence Yeakley, and they ruled his death as a suicide too, and he apparently dragged himself behind his car. So I don't buy into any. Right. I mean, are you kidding me? And then we're talking about somebody who's coming out with a groundbreaking movie. The police state is around us. And if it is, don't you think this would be the type of person that they would specifically have a tab on? I would think they'd be tracking everything he does. He'd be definitely a targeted individual when it comes to this. So if that's the case, there should be a lot more evidence out there. Of course, they probably don't want to admit they were tracking him, but wouldn't this be the type of individual that they surely would be tracking, whether by phone, whether by satellite? As we learn more, there's going to be a leak in this case. There's going to be a leak somewhere, and the truth's going to come out.
Yeah, but if he's guilty, if this guy is a child killer, if he's a woman killer, doesn't that taint this film? You know, doesn't that already, you know, shed some really bad light on this film? To really, then people are just going to say, well, how can you support a film like this that was made by this guy who created these, you know, murders, basically? I mean, it's just, I think it puts us in a really, really tough spot. I can see where you guys are coming from.
No, and we honestly can see where you're coming from too. It is going to be a very tough spot, because naturally, I mean, Erik and I are both parents. You know, I can see where you're coming from. It is going to hurt the film for sure, but I'm also wondering if maybe that was the point. But if it does come out, you know, beyond a shadow of a doubt that he did this, I can see myself saying, wow, great film, horrible guy.
We're talking about David now, right? We're talking about if it comes out. Yeah, if it comes out that David Crowley actually did this, then I'm going to have to start believing that Jet Fuel brought down the towers too. Honestly, the only way it's going to come out that he did this is by them horribly tainting the evidence and making up what they want. They'd have to do a hell of a lot to convince me that this was anything other than a planned hit.
I think they're going to do that anyway. Like I said, if this film is still going to be released, they're going to do their very best to make sure that the official story is going to stick.
Yeah.
So it's going to be hard, Greg, to really, like I said, it's going to be hard to get anything but, you know, the official story. I think there's going to be no independent investigation. I mean, not to bring up and go way in left field, but look at all the evidence when Kurt Cobain had committed suicide, supposedly. And the evidence was outstanding that they should have had, you know, a more thorough investigation, but they just closed it as, well, he's just another Hollywood junkie, and let's just call it that. He killed himself. And now they're talking about reopening the case. But you're talking 1994, you're talking 21 years later.
Okay, well, let's say that this wasn't David Crowley. Same film, same everything, same projects. Let's say that this was Michael Moore or Charlie Sheen who made this exact same film. Would you guys still feel that this the same way, or is it just because it's David Crowley?
Well, see, I don't know much about David Crowley on a personal level. Talking to two guys from Michigan, we do, however, know an awful lot about Michael Moore. So for Michael Moore to ever come out with a film like this, hell, seriously, would be selling milkshakes.
And Charlie Sheen, you know, he was adamantly against he's adamantly against 9/11 too. In fact, he had his 5 minutes with Obama, and Obama wouldn't answer anything. But I'd put Charlie Sheen in
20 questions.
Oh, was it 20 questions? Yeah. And Obama just kept looking at his watch like, is this over yet? So Charlie Sheen, I'd put in almost the same kind of genre as David Crowley. But you're saying if it was just some layperson, somebody who had not seen armed combat and came out with this movie, I would have to try to look at the facts as hard as I could. The problem here is they're not giving us any facts whatsoever that point to a murder-suicide. Nothing. Mike, have you seen anything that even remotely points to the official story adding up? Nothing. I've been looking hard.
I mean, the evidence is so scarce. That's why it's so, there's so many red flags about the way that certain people are acting, you know, because there's just not that much. I mean, has there even been an official what am I going to say? Has there been an official Was there a funeral service yet? I mean, did they have? I haven't heard. There has been. Okay. What about an official obituary? Because the one that was circulating, we were told, was fake.
There were two of them, and I guess there were some questions about one of them being fake or something. Yeah. But they have, and even the Hennen, I think it's the Hennepin, the medical examiner did release just that one. It's a one-page statement.
The press release
just says that David Crowley killed himself. Yeah. But I mean, I haven't really seen it out there, and even the people that have covered it, the ones who were given it, they haven't really put it out there. And to me, that was kind of weird. You can't find it on their website either. So it's just like they're making it hard to find anything.
Exactly. And that's kind of like why my head is spinning the way it is, because it's just, just like Joe said, there's so many possibilities that it's almost like we don't have really a whole lot to go on except for assumption right now, or the what ifs, or because there's not a lot and you would think somebody that's an up and coming filmmaker in Hollywood, especially with the way society is, you think this would really be being talked about. It would be talked about a lot. But it's not. Instead, we're still talking about Justin Bieber. I mean, I just don't, I guess I just don't understand why this is taking so long. And I actually want to,
they think it'll go away. They think people will forget about it. That's
probably
why.
And I think that's why it's a good thing that more and more of us continue to ask the questions. And I'm really surprised that some of his closest friends are not. I mean, that's another thing. I mean, it's so, Greg, it's like a juggling act, man. I mean, there's so many possibilities I've been running in my head that it's like, well, that's a possibility. Well, then this could be a possibility. Well, why is this happening this way? Why did this happen? Why is this guy getting mad? Why is
this narrative about him being an abuser and these domestic abuse shirts coming out? Where did that come? That came out of nowhere.
Yeah, and that he's a gun, that he was this crazy gun nut, because they had that Twitter picture, which turned out to be a bunch of airsoft guns, a bunch of props. I mean, that's just the way things happen. Even David Koresh was even a little goofy in the head, but he wasn't the monster that people made him out to be.
Well, they keep saying that David had PTSD.
Right.
And they keep talking about that, and I guess the death of his wife is actually listed, and I have to verify this, but it's actually listed as a domestic abuse case too, or something.
Right.
It's like added in to those.
That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make this guy look like a crazy conspiracist nut. So if you buy into anything he says in his movie, then you must be a nut too. You see what they're doing? They're setting them up. This is what these people are like. This is what people like Mike and I are like. This is the kind of people we are. We'll just take out our family and our child. And so you shouldn't. It goes into the narrative of don't buy into anything you see in this movie because he's just crazy.
Well, I think that frightens me a lot, Eric, because we're on the air twice a week. We do our own YouTube videos. We're doing breaking news stories. We're talking about things that alternative media is. Now, I've already think that just us covering this twice is already, 50% more of other alternative medias right now. And we're going to continue to cover this case, man. I mean, if we come in next week and the evidence that we have is still the same, we are still going to cover. We are still going to ask questions. We are still going to cover this because something like this cannot go away. And I'm so sick and tired of every time any of us question anything, we should be wearing tinfoil hats, and we should be, we get lumped into this cult following and things like that. And I just, if that's what it is, then I'm proud to be a tinfoil hat wearing cult member, because I'm not going to stop.
And Mike and I are the first people to say that we always are quick to let you know that not everything is a conspiracy. We never want to get lumped into everything is a crazy conspiracy thing. Never. Did you happen to see Aaron Russo's film America, Freedom to Fascism?
Yes.
I mean, for me, that's an absolute must see. Yet the government calls anyone who refers to that documentary a potential terrorist. And that's the same thing as absolutely.
The government, Erik and I right now, according to the government, the stuff we talk about, we are considered terrorists. You being on the line with us right now and even questioning certain things with us, if you question any official story, you're labeled a terrorist, man. If you think 9/11 was an inside job, you're being compared to ISIS. You know, it's really bad.
That's usually what terrorists say. That's usually what terrorists say. They're the first ones to point the finger and call everybody else terrorists.
And we've always been saying that. You remember the whole famous speech, if you're not with us, you're with the terrorists. Well, the people aren't with you guys. So that means, and the reason the people aren't with you guys is because you are with the terrorists.
Yep.
And that's kind of like,
you are the terrorists.
That's it, man. And we're just kind of, we just, but yeah, man, we are, and it's not just it's not just domestically. We're being looked at internationally. I mean, when we've got, guys in England and high ambassadors all over the world saying you got to watch out for those truthers because they want to end the world. They're gonna. I tell you what, Greg, I've never in my life. Well, at least in the last 8 years of being awake to kind of what's going on, I've never had the urge to go marching into Washington, D.C. and start firing Molotov cocktails through the windows or firing guns at our officials or, what I'm looking at is I'm looking at a humanitarian effort, man, that we've got to stand together as one united and be for humanity. We outnumber them a lot. I mean, 99% to 1, that's a hell of a good odd that we can win this thing,
That's right.
I would definitely roll those dice on those odds, man. Am I saying, and I say it every week, I really do, and I would much rather die standing up than to die on my knees blindfolded.
Amen to that. Well, that's the thing with our group is, we have over 800 people in that group, and really only a couple people that are just causing problems and stuff. So
it's
really
usually
not
the
that
case.
many.
Yeah, and it's it's the same thing we just talked about, just on a smaller level. I mean, Erik and I have the Wake Up to the Truth page on Facebook, and it's got 3,500 members, and we've only really had about 3 or 4 people that caused any kind of problems, and it didn't get out of control problems. But when for sure it's disinformation that's being posted, and we politely tell them it is, and tell them why, and then they just continue to push it. Well, now they already showed their true colors. We let them go. We have a Unity for Truth movement too, where people are allowed to talk about anything, man. We do not. But if it's disinformation and you're purposely doing it, we've become pretty pro at it on catching the stuff. As far as misinformation, though, that can be very easily. I've posted stuff that has been misinformation and had to have people say, hey, man, this is, I don't know where you got this, but this isn't true. And I looked into it and I'm like, wow, so it's very easy. I mean, it's a very small percentage on the internet, man. I'm willing to say, if I could throw percentages out there, probably not even a quarter of what's out on the internet right now is the full truth of anything. Right. So you really got to dig. And man, if we got paid by the hour, Greg, I tell you what, we'd invite you all over for a huge NBC barbecue.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'd be doing shots together. Absolutely.
That is a awesome beanie too. I just gotta say, I really like that beanie that you're sporting there.
Thank you. Let's get a little close up of that.
I don't know how he managed to get outpatient, because as soon as I'm done with the show, they throw me back in the padded room.
Right. Right. Getting ready for my stay in Guantanamo.
Yeah. So anything else?
There's one thing. Yeah, just a few more things, and then I'll let you guys go.
No problem.
That we do know one thing. We do know that whatever police found that day, It only took them one day to start telling the media that this was a double murder suicide.
Right.
And so so to me, it's like, why have they waited so long to just say, hey, you know, this is why? They haven't released anything, but they came to that conclusion so quickly that, you know, that was always weird to me too.
Yeah, it was very, it was very quick. You know, I think the last time I've seen such quick detective work was within the first hour of the North Tower being hit, that we already knew who Osama bin Laden and Saddam Hussein were buddies, you know, and that they, within an hour they knew who those guys were. But keep in mind, there was never any prior knowledge, you know. Yeah, that was very, I mean, how do you come to that conclusion? I'm not a detective, so I'm not quite sure.
They must have something.
Yeah, I mean,
they must have something.
There wasn't any kind of a suicide note or anything left, was there? I mean, I'd never heard of anything like that. I didn't hear of any. It seemed like all the
note, but they haven't. Yeah, but they haven't called her the suicide note yet.
Right, and wasn't it something very small too? Right, wasn't it like 2 lines or something like that? They're saying. Yeah. So I mean, normally, and I'm not saying it's not possible, but I'm saying that normally when a guy has a wife and a child, it's usually going to be a lot more than 2 lines. You know, I mean, it's going to be more in depth. I don't know. It just, something's one way or another, man. The official story doesn't add up, and all the facts on the other side that we're looking for don't seem to be adding up either, man. It's kind of like playing a game of the biggest game of Where's Waldo. We're looking for that one big piece, you know, and I don't know if we're going to get it. I hope we do. I really do. And that's why I think like the Facebook page that we have going on, Greg, is important. And I think the numbers do need to grow, because what could be 800 people today, a month from now, could end up being 1,600 people. Then it could be 3,200 people. And before you know it, you've got 50,000 people that really, could you imagine getting 50,000 people to call the police department in Minneapolis and start to demand some answers? Do you know what that would be like for them poor people to have to answer those calls?
Perhaps if David Crowley was black, then we could have some of these some of these ministers show up and cause problems and get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, Jesse Jackson would get the answers we're looking for.
Yeah. He did jump right in.
Well,
there.
You got it. Yeah, sure. I wouldn't count on anyone like that. But
right.
I mean, but that brings up the major question here: is why is the alternative media so silent? These guys that have no problem about talking about these other topics, they have no problem about walking up to people on the street.
Right.
They have no problem, you know, about questioning different topics. But on this, they're not going to. And I get it. They can't cover everything, and we shouldn't be looking at them and saying, well, because you're not covering it, then you must be an agent or you must be that. Like that, you know. I'm not going there, but it does strike me as really odd at the fact that a lot of the people in the alternative media have not covered. Maybe that's because the cops haven't told us much.
They haven't, and I know Alex Jones, again, he did get a call in on it, and I think that he was just so discouraged trying to talk to friends and family, not only about what happened, but about, you know, possibly helping fund to push this movie through, and they were just so adamant for the mainstream media's and the police's story that it frustrated him to no end. He just said screw it, because he already openly admitted that he doesn't believe it. So that's one reason why he just isn't really covering it anymore, because he's frustrated by it. But you make a great point, because besides him, I really haven't seen anything in the alternative media covering this either. I mean, this mirrors. Do you guys know who Philip Marshall is? Do you remember him?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, he was a retired CIA and airline pilot, and he was investigating hardcore government corruption stuff and writing a book about 9/11. Suddenly, guess what happened? He shot his 2 teenage kids, took out the dog too, and then himself in the living room, of course. He was right-handed. Of course, said that he was shot by the left hand. Then he fell on top of the gun. I mean, it's exactly the same as what we just saw here. Almost to the T, with the exception of the dog.
Sure, and his gun was actually upside down, so he shot himself with the gun upside down, which was very, very weird. But at least those cops, at least they gave us a statement. They actually gave us two, and the second one actually laid out their whole case, which we were able to just, basically show that they have no proof, and they never did, and they never will. And I'm sad to say that the same thing will probably happen here. So I don't know why people are jumping to say that this guy is guilty without proof. And if they've seen that proof, then they should share that proof.
Absolutely.
And if they think that the proof is not going to come out, they are very, very wrong. The truth will come out. And if there's going to be certain people that are going to try to stand in our way, the truth is going to come out about those people too.
Mm-hmm. So, Greg, I mean, what you're basically saying is you want the law to be carried out the way it was intended to be. I don't think that's too much to ask.
No,
I mean, considering that it doesn't happen that way, and Tom is talking in the chat room right now, and like I said, I am a fan of Alex Jones, but he does make a good point, man. A lot of the alternative media that were involved in this documentary, they're not talking about it. I mean, I'm not asking Alex Jones to do a full 3-hour report on it, but man, it wouldn't hurt to throw in 10 minutes. Just ask, do a call out. If there's anybody out there, I mean, just shine some light. Just let people know, because Alex has got millions of viewers and we don't. And this is the second show we've had in less than a week, and it's not going to be the last. It's not. We're going to continue to have this right now between the gray state and what's going on in Ukraine. Erik and I are, we're like hound dogs right now, man. We're sniffing everywhere we possibly can, so
yeah.
So I'm asking, please, alternative media people, just shed some light on this, man. Shed some light on this stuff. What is there anything that you guys know? I mean, they've got the money to investigate just about everywhere. If Erik and I were to travel to Minnesota and try to do any kind of detective work, well, our spouses would probably leave us because we would have to put out our savings to go do it.
Yep.
So. We just got to do the best we can. We're going to stick on this, and trust me when I say this, Greg, I am the type that will, and I have done it in the past. I will start making phone calls to the police department, eventually asking questions, and I mean to the point where they're going to be annoyed. Our Michigan representatives, they probably know me by name, especially our senator, because I've called him out on being a dual citizen of here in Israel for the last year. He won't return my calls. He won't return my emails. And I'm not threatening him. I'm not mean. It's just, there's a lot of, I'm that guy, man. I mean, you guys are our representatives. It's your job to answer my emails and my phone calls. And sorry, I actually make you work for your $600,000 a year job that you don't even need because you're getting paid in other ways, So
okay,
I don't
guys,
fear that, man.
I
don't
really
fear that. I think maybe we should do that.
I really appreciate it.
Why don't I ask Dan that? Say, hey, Dan, here's a good idea. Why don't we get the number for the Minneapolis Police Department, and let's pick a day where everybody just continues to call all day long and demand some ansers. You got 700
That's
people in there.
That is a great idea.
I'm not afraid, man. I'm not afraid. I'll call. I will call. And want to know.
Well, I have called them, and they just, played. They just like, well, we don't know, and we don't have any information on when they're gonna come out with that. But I think that if we keep calling them and keep asking them, they will actually see that, wow, okay, people really want to actually know, and that might encourage them to show us this proof, and then we can move on, basically,
Yeah.
But
that's
my
the same situation, with the government's always complaining that we always want to talk about the Pentagon. Well, it's simple. You want us to shut up about the Pentagon? Show us the videos, and then we'll shut up.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it. Simple.
You know?
Okay, guys. Well, I'm gonna let you both go, and I was just, my last question, and then I'll just clear out from there. Is if you guys have felt any pressure to not talk about this story, or do you guys anticipate any pressure in the future? Because you guys are the only one, really one of the only ones that's even talking about this. You guys might actually be the only ones that is talking about this. So, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg.
Boy, that's a loaded question. Yeah, Erik, I do think that eventually we are going to start getting some heat, especially when I've been trying to get a hold of these people that have a problem with the questions being asked. They're eventually going to, I'm even giving them the links to our show. It's almost like I'm kind of poking the bear. Absolutely.
Yeah, good.
We're going to get questioned. We're going to feel some heat, and they can bring it on, baby. I brought my suntan lotion. Bring me the heat, because I'm not giving up.
I'll lather you up, brother.
Yeah, I'm not,
back.
Yeah, I'm not going to stop.
I'll tell you who's not shying away from this, though, and who's calling him out is Anonymous. Anonymous was right on it. So if you haven't seen their take on it, make sure you check it out.
Tell you what, man, Chance just had a really good idea. For all those that are listening, man, maybe next week we'll just have to make a phone call to the Minneapolis Police Department on the air. Maybe we'll have to do that. I want to know the names of the detectives, too, that are working this case. I want their names. We have a right to know that. They're public servants. They're not undercover detectives, so I want to know who's. And I want to get a hold of the medical examiner, too. That little press release wasn't good enough for me. I want to know more. Let's do it, man. Let's get them on the air next week. Let's make some phone calls. And if it's an after hours thing, that's fine. Erik and I got plenty of time to sit back. I've got a recording program on my computer. I'll call during the day and record it. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, we should probably start doing that just about every episode or whatever topic we're on. Maybe we should make calls. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, why not, man? It's the Apple Valley Police Department. I believe that's the name, is the Apple Valley Police Department. If I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's exactly who it is. And Greg said Captain John Bermel. So Captain John, Gray State people that are against us for asking questions, you might want to let your captain know that we're going to try to get a hold of him next week. So to expect us.
Expect us.
Right now, I guess Greg says that Captain Bermel said he's establishing a timeline of events right now. So I mean, but I'm just curious. I'd like to hear. It's
establishing a timeline of events. I mean, how long ago did this happen?
Yeah, this has been a while,
hasn't it? Now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm just curious. We can call, man. I think it's a great idea. That's why we have the producers we do. Most producers are in the background going, no, don't say that, man. Don't say that. That's not the popular opinion. Our producer's going, dude, you need to call the police department and find out what's up.
Yep.
So, but I really appreciate all the calls that came in tonight. Seriously, we don't make money off this, man. We're not looking to make money off this, but because truth has no monetary value. Truth is a priceless, valuable item, and we'll keep fighting for it. If we can just get even one sentence out of this guy that is different from what he's been saying, guess what? That's progress. Might not be a huge progress, but if we got to take baby steps, we'll take baby steps.
Absolutely.
So, Erik, before we sign off, man, let's we got about 5 minutes left. Why don't you hit the audience a little bit of what we're going to be talking about on Thursday, because this is going to be a quote unquote bombshell of a show.
Yeah, we have a couple from Ukraine who have family over there who have been right on it right along with me, including this possible tactical nuclear weapon going off in Ukraine. They've been giving me the real deal. So if you really want to know what's going on, turn off your TV and tune into alternative media, because we're going to be contacting the people who are on site and who are near what's going on, and they're going to give us the real deal. And we're going to blow the lid off what's going on in Ukraine, because bottom line is that the Ukrainian government was not duly elected. It was overthrown with the help of U.S. intelligence and U.S. forces, and a violent overthrow. And
No.
yeah, right. And what they're saying, as shocking as it is to believe, the people they're calling rebels and separatists are actually the ones who are trying to take back Ukraine for what it was. And the people who are in charge there, they are neo-Nazi thugs. They're very bad people. And it should send out a loud and clear message to the U.S. people of what these people are about. We are arming. We're about to give them $5 billion worth of lethal aid. That means lethal weapons to fight against Russia. And we're going along with a group that mirrors the Third Reich very closely. They follow the same things. They've honored a former Nazi camp prison guard who was responsible for murdering over 30,000 people as a hero. You know, that's the talk that's coming from these guys. And so they're going to tell you all about it. Plus, Ukraine has some very interesting weapons themselves. There's been evidence of direct energy weapons being held by Ukraine. So a lot's going to come out of this. And God, I'm just praying that the end game isn't World War III, because I know that if Russia decided to give $5 billion worth of arms to somebody we were fighting against, then they would be our enemy and we would go to war with them. Because it doesn't take, we go to war with other countries that aren't even responsible for attacks on our own soil.
So I was gonna say, is there anybody we really need a real reason to go to war with? I mean, we're America. We can just wake up one day and go, yeah, we're going to war with them.
And that's sad. And it's sad that the people in America have not woken up to the fact yet that most of the rest of the world views us as terrorists. Very sad. And there are some of us here who don't believe it, who aren't going along with it, and are going to fight it tooth and nail every step of the way. So it's not all of us. And I sure hope that the rest of the world is taking note that there are some people out there, such as Mike and I and Mark and Chance and anyone else in the alternative media, that is not going along with this agenda. We're not going along with this narrative, and we're going to fight it tooth and nail until all is lost. And then when all is lost, we're still going to try to fight. But this is looking real bad over there. Real bad when you're talking about possible tactical nukes going off. It's a very, very scary time we're living in right now.
No doubt. No doubt about it, man. It's scary, and the way I handle fear is I get pissed.
Yeah, me too.
I'm pissed. I really am. Like that movie Network, you know. I don't know what's going on. All I know is you got to get mad.
Yeah.
You got to get mad. And I'm pissed. My children are at stake. Your children are at stake. The children all over the world are at stake. For the last time, man, I'd love for one person to call in and convince me why dropping bombs on children is a way to achieve peace. If you could call me and give me a real explanation as to why that is, I'll listen, but it's going to take a lot of convincing, and I don't think you have it in you.
Yeah, I'm sure that somebody would call in and explain collateral damage to us, try to explain that.
Yeah.
What a sick word that is.
Well, I tell you what, man, this has been an awesome show tonight. And, you know, maybe next Tuesday we'll do her again. And we'll in the meantime, I think in the next couple of days, maybe tomorrow, I'll hook up the old Audacity program, and I'll call Apple Valley Police Department and see what I can find out if there's any of the listeners that are listening within our chat room and stuff, man. If you want to help me put together a list of questions to ask these people, I'm more than willing to ask them your questions. We'll have it on record. We'll upload it. We'll play it on the show. And to the people from the opposition that have got such fear of coming onto the show and are only showing their faces within Facebook, we really appreciate you not showing up, but the invitation is an open invitation, and you are always welcome to call in, and you will be hearing from me. So I hope that you'll give us a second shot. If you notice, we're pretty gracious hosts. We have no intention on taking your head and tearing it off or anything. No fake beheadings here on NBC. And hopefully you will come on, man. Just come on and talk to us. Convince us why we should stop investigating, why we should stop asking questions. If you can legitimately convince us and you can give us all the evidence we need to know, then I tell you what, I'll consider it. But I highly doubt it. And I'll be talking to you guys. So we're going to be back on Thursday from 9 to 11. You just heard what we're going to be talking about. It's going to be a great show. Definitely come in, listen to the show 9 to 11. I'll be posting it to everybody that called in tonight. Dan, Joe, Greg, thanks for calling in. Everybody that's in the chat room, Tom, there's a lot of them. Tom, Schroeder. I love that name, by the way. Greg also in the chat room. Everybody that's joining us tonight, we really appreciate you listening in. Brendan Hunt, I know you're listening in because you can't help yourself, and I'm sure there'll be a blog about us tomorrow, which we really appreciate because there's no publicity. That's bad publicity, my man. So go ahead and write what you want. But from all of us from Wake Up to the Truth Radio, I'm Mike Serour with my partner in crime,
Erik Spitfire Wilkinson, Brendan Hunt. Come at me, brah.
We'll see you Thursday. Peace.
Peace.